Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education this Monday, March 3rd, 2025. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next, we're going to review and approve the agenda. Can I get a motion, please, to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, March 3rd, 2025? Phil, second. Wex, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. Next, we'll approve the minutes from our last meeting, February 10th, 2025. Can I please get a motion to approve those minutes? Laura, second. Wex, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. And next, something very exciting. So, Arts and Education Month.
Yes.
Send it over to you.
Good evening. As we begin tonight's meeting, we have the pleasure of recognizing and celebrating Arts in Education Month. It's a time to recognize the profound impact that the arts have on our students, our schools, and our community. The arts ignite creativity, they deepen critical thinking, and they enrich the human experience in ways that extend far beyond the classroom. We're fortunate tonight to have such talented and dedicated educators who bring music, theater, visual arts, and more to life in our schools every day. We're thrilled to be joined tonight by our Director of Visual and Performing Arts, Laura Newell. She is joined by our New Canaan High School choir teacher, Sarah Gleason, and most importantly, by our New Canaan High School madrigals. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Good evening. It is a privilege to celebrate Arts in Our Schools Month, a time to reflect on the incredible value the arts brings to our students and the communities. The arts, whether through music, theater, dance, or visual arts, help develop creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. They foster self-expression, build confidence, encourage empathy, enriching both minds and hearts of all. Research has shown time and time again that students who engage in the arts tend to excel academically, build greater self-confidence, and develop deeper emotional intelligence. They learn to appreciate diverse perspectives, express themselves authentically, and problem solve in ways that benefit them in every aspect of their lives. The arts provide a sense of belonging, a creative outlet, and an opportunity for students to connect with their culture, history, and community in meaningful ways. We also know that the arts are more than just about developing individual talents. The arts bring communities together. They create spaces for dialogue, for shared experiences, and for celebrating unique voices of all students. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Board of Education for your unwavering support of our arts program. Your dedication provides students with the resources and opportunities to explore and grow in the arts, ensuring they receive a well-rounded education that will serve them for years to come. By nurturing the arts in our schools, we are investing not just in the futures of our students, but the cultural and creative vibrancy of our society as a whole. Between our scholastic art winners and regional, all-state, and all-Eastern student participants, we have a lot to celebrate here in New Canaan. As we continue to celebrate Arts in Our Schools Month across the district, I shared a small flyer with some of the special programming we have during the month of March. This includes our annual New Canaan High School Through Our Eyes art exhibition at the Carriage Barn and the New Canaan High School winter musical production of Les Mis. I hope to see many of you at these performances and many more throughout the year. As a special treat to kick off the month, we have invited the NCHS Madrigal Singers to perform for you tonight. An ensemble that includes our most advanced singers in the program who not only share their talents in the classroom, but also frequently with our New Canaan community. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight Arts in Our Schools Month tonight and enjoy our magical singers under the direction of Sarah Gleason.
Good evening, everyone. We are the New Canaan High School Madrigals, and we're very excited to be here tonight. We're going to be singing a piece titled Needle and Thread by Jocelyn Hagan, and the lyrics are taken from a poem of the same title by Amanda Lovelace. The poem reads as follows. You brought the needle and I brought the thread. We meant to mend our two broken hearts, but we ended up stitching them together.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you this evening.
And thank you. You wouldn't know it, but Sarah was asked Wednesday, if you could be here. And tonight is rehearsal. And to my ears, you've been rehearsing that for a very long time. Beautifully done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was incredible. What a treat. Wow. Yeah, that was incredible. Juilliard via New Canaan High School. That was awesome. Thank you. All right, moving on. To comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes to be allotted to each speaker with a maximum of 15 minutes on each subject. Would anybody like to approach the board with comments? Just as a reminder, state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Ed and Dr. Ludsey. I'm Mary Ann Canag, and I live at 258 Park Street. Continuing my, how shall I say, great interest and passion for education. I'm a retired educator and also a retired Connecticut State best teacher. I'm still focusing on curriculum, and I have a couple of questions, 3 questions tonight. The workshop, concerning the workshop on the report of the Curriculum Review Committee. I have not heard an update. The original issue was raised at the end of October, so we've had at least 3 months, and we've heard nothing. I don't want the year to run out and not have the community get some insight and some transparency on how the curriculum is chosen. Secondly, I want to comment on how my own passion for this topic is that I know from teaching literature, reading and discussing and debating great literature has a humanizing effect in forming students' minds. It raises some of the challenges of life before they happen to them within a detached frame where they can think about these things dispassionately. But salacious and biased literature has a dehumanizing effect. All literature is not equal. Our students deserve the best. And finally, I have a few questions, and I understand you can't answer them, so I don't know how these questions get answered. Do our students still pledge allegiance to the flag? Maybe you could nod or shake your head. Do they? I have heard that in some classrooms there are pride flags. Are they still there? And do they pledge allegiance to the American flag and in any classroom and a pride flag? That to me is an important question to ask, and that's all I have to say tonight, and I thank you very much. But I do need to hear that report. Curriculum is...
It's been 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to approach the board? Thank
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and fellow parents. I'm Julia Farber of Sagamore Trail. On December 16, I stood before you and outlined several areas where we believe that the Board of Education is not in compliance with Connecticut state law. I ask you to review your policies, compare them with the state statutes, and present your findings and corrective actions at tonight's meeting. We're here tonight because we expect answers. We're asking for proof, clear documented evidence that this board is in full compliance with the state law. And let me remind you, we voted for you. We, the parents and taxpayers of New Canaan, elected you to represent the best interest of our children and our community. That means not just hearing parents, but actively working with us to ensure your policies reflect the values and priorities of the families you serve. There are two parts of every child's education, the part that they get at school and the part that they get at home. You, the board, decide where to draw this line. You decide if parents need to hire private tutors to bridge the gap in math and science, or if the parents are left to explain or reject books or lessons that don't align with their family values. You have the power and the legal responsibility to set the required curriculum for New Canaan students. But with that power comes a duty to understand what this community values and to create policies that reflect the broad range of families in this town, not just select a few. That is exactly what Connecticut General Statutes 10-220 requires, policies and procedures developed with community input, not behind closed doors. So tonight we ask again, show us the proof that the board is in compliance with the law, and if you're not, tell us exactly what steps you will take to fix it. We elected you, we trusted you. Now we need you to respect parents, respect families, and ensure the school's part of our children's education is suitable for everyone in New Canaan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Yes? Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? So a few years ago, when I was teaching mathematics, undergraduate class at Yale, calculus, linear algebra, I came across several very bright, very talented students who nevertheless struggled with very basic school-level concepts, like skills, I would say, such as solving quadratic equation. So I thought at the time, if I could go, back in time, work with their schools to make sure they don't miss out, could make a difference. Now I have 3 kids of my own, hi kids, here in our own New Canaan public schools. I'd like to contribute. So back in 2021, our school sent out an email, a community outreach to parents with careers in STEM. And quoting from that email, one of the goals was to make connections between skills the students are building in our STEM programs to future career paths. It was an excellent initiative, in my opinion, and unfortunately, it didn't pick up, really, as far as I know. So I would like to have it revived. It's a great initiative. In addition to the reasons I quoted and other reasons I did not quote from that outreach, it will also help us keep our curriculum relevant to the future career paths as stated, and encourage further collaboration between our teachers, our parents, and our kids. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Sorry, can you state your name and street?
Oh, sorry. Andre Aspo, 51 Twin Pond Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, Sarah Lohman, Old Sanford Road. How are you? I'm a 15-year resident, and thank you, Board of Ed, for your time. I have 2 children at the high school, and I have 1 in the middle school. All 3 have enjoyed a rich and broad education, starting from day 1 in kindergarten here. The performance history of the school system very much influenced our choice to move here 15 years ago. Since then, the school is not disappointed. We receive timely, clear communication from the school administration and teachers with details on each new unit taught. This is a very transparent system with opt-out opportunities through proper channels. There are families that are calling for school district curriculum committees, whether or not there is a committee now or if it is under a different name or title. I feel that this is a Trojan horse for people looking to limit or censor my child's education in this town. I do not support parents and laymen overseeing or reviewing the hard work of professionally trained educators. My trust in the district has not been undermined at all. Required reading of this book that's in question. My two children, one in 9th grade now and my 10th grader, they did not read that book. They didn't have that book. So I didn't experience the things that other people have experienced. And I think there are different channels that people can go through to figure that out. My trust in the community to make smart decisions has faltered greatly. And I do not want them speaking or choosing anything on my behalf. I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to approach the board? Okay, thank you very much, all of you. Next, we're going to move on to reports and recognition. We've got a CABE legislative update with Sheila McKay, and I believe that this will be zoomed in. Great.
Hello, Sheila. I got a little nervous. I didn't see you on the screen. Thank you for joining us tonight. As the board may know, last week I had the opportunity to meet with a few of our representatives. I met with Tom O'Day, Lucy Datham, and Savik Constantine, and we, over breakfast, talked about some of the things going on in Hartford, some of the initiatives and bills that were being drafted. And in the course of that conversation and afterwards, I started thinking about how best to bring some information to the board. And of course, it didn't take long for me to think about CABE and to reach out to Patrice and to Sheila to ask them if they could join the board for a brief update on what's happening. As you may be aware, and certainly Sheila knows quite a bit more than I do, this is a long session this year, and they are in session now. You do have in front of you a handout that Sheila sent over to me this afternoon that covers some of what we'll be able to discuss tonight. But invited her here to give an overview of some of the bills on the floor that CABE is paying close attention to, and to provide an opportunity for the board to ask any questions and engage in some dialogue to learn about this session and where we are. We still have a ways to go, and I'm sure Sheila will give you a little bit around the timelines with all of that. But thank you. I know you've been very busy. I know you've spent quite a bit of time in Hartford doing the good work that CABE does in support of our school district. So Sheila, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me well enough?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to give you the late breaking news. I mean, you're not home to watch the news, but you may very well know that the governor did veto the special ed money that the legislature did adopt last week. He signed a line item veto a couple of, maybe an hour plus ago. He had a press availability early this afternoon saying that he would do such thing. We do believe that the House and the Senate will seek a veto override. We don't yet know if all their ducks are in a line, but there was sufficient support in the votes last week. The House passed it 145-5 with 5 absent, and the Senate passed it 34 to 2 being absent and 1 not currently a seat not being filled. So again, as I say, there's really great support there. So stay tuned on Wednesday to see if this comes up for a vote and how widely it would be adopted. And I urge you to contact your legislators and ask them to, have a veto override session. They happen to be in on Wednesday, and we hear they may take this up on Wednesday.
So if I can provide a little bit of context around the bill you're specifically referring to, Sheila, that is the addition of $40 million into the excess cost grant funds. As you'll recall, the excess cost is the same year reimbursement grant that helps to defray some of the costs of high expense students. And so when we have students that it costs more than 4.5 times our per pupil because of special needs, the state then helps to cover that delta between 4.5 times and whatever the total might be. In recent years, that's gone down for us here in New Canaan. The legislature a few years ago passed a law that tiered it in a tier 1, 2, or 3, right, based upon a wealth ranking. And then just recently, it was underfunded based upon the need. They essentially have this pool, they see what the needs are, and then they distribute the money using that formula that they have in the budget. And under the existing formula, our reimbursement would have dropped another $200,000, $250,000 or so. That's the funding that goes directly to the town. So we budget for the entire amount, so we gross that up. But so the town was recognizing a bit of a less income in that line. The issue is that the budget number from 2 years ago, I believe, right? This is the second year of the biennium, was lower than it should have been. So this is not additional funding. This just sort of level funds it on what it had been in the past. And so the chambers met, they approved it, went on to the governor, and he vetoed it in a line item veto, I believe. And now the supermajority can override that on Wednesday. Is that where you? Okay.
Yeah, that's where we are at this point. And, you know, the numbers are such that in the 2-year budget, the excess cost reimbursement grant was at $181 million. But as I note further down on the page there were reimbursements in fiscal year 24 of 261, I think it was.
Yep, that's what you have. Yep.
261 million. And so that far exceeds the 181. We know from what we've been told, you know, it's a reimbursement grant, number one. So you don't ever know how many districts are seeking reimbursement for. And then you never know, you shouldn't say you never know, but then you do expect there'll be increase in costs, but nobody expected this much of an increase in costs. Mm-hmm. Some of the increase in costs are due to tuition rates at risks and some of the non-approved outplacements and transportation. As I note further in further in my comments here to you, before the select committee on special education, there were comments from the Meriden director of special education who said, we have one student that goes to Hartford, or maybe they have more than one, but a particular student goes to Hartford, and that's a $40,000 transportation cost, just a transportation cost. Another one goes to Vernon, and that's a $60,000 transportation cost. You know, that's a huge nut. I think most transportation contracts are about 5 years, I believe. And, you know, a lot happens in 5 years. So there's a lot of forecasting, I guess. Well,
and it may surprise you, Sheila, to hear that some of our surrounding districts are reporting $100,000, $125,000 for a year for transport for one student. We are, we have the good fortune of having developed an in-house transportation system with our own vans. We've got about 30 drivers and vans that do this work for us at a significantly reduced cost. But it is still a part of the 4.5 times when we have students that we're transporting. It all gets added in.
Yeah, but that's great. I mean, then you have the opportunity to know where your costs are going and share the services if you so choose. Mm-hmm. And that's really beneficial. And I hope one of you will testify at the public hearing that they hope to have the third week in March before the select committee on what's working and what's not working in your district in terms of special education. But you know, the governor is seeking to have, and the department's already been working on potential for rate setting for tuition. Mm-hmm. There are 7 states in the nation that do this. And they are looking at and speaking to those states, one of them being Massachusetts. We will see. We have one concern being the rate being set too high for a entity to be able to, I'm sorry, not too high, too low for an entity to be able to pay for that, provide that service. And then maybe not offer it, and then you having to go further distance with that student to find that service. So We don't want to have students going further on a bus than necessary. We certainly would always want to see students educated in-house, in district, I should say. Then we also have to look at where you need special ed staff. Special ed staff, every October, the State Department of Ed does a census on teacher vacancies, and special ed for decades is understaffed. The teacher residency program out of RESC, the Regional Education Service Center, RESC in Hartford, which is in charge of the statewide program, started out 6 years ago with about 12 teacher prep students, are now up to 40. They're being certified in a year's time in either elementary or special education. They sought funding and received the promise of funding, I should say, in the next biennium. This biennium, they're supposed to have received it for 25 additional spaces, and the money got pulled back. So that potentially could have been another 25 special ed teachers in the state of Connecticut. And I know, districts have good relationships with some of the universities in the state, trying to grow your own. And we support those programs, and we would hope that the state could help support those programs. What other comments here? I think, any type of program that would look towards joint effort for certain services, whatever service you chose to work jointly with another district, or bring back, those are two of the ways in which the governor is looking at putting some funds through. But in this budget, while the governor said he did put money in, and he did, but it's for fiscal year 27. It's not for fiscal year 26. And again, the 40 million that we spoke of early on is for this budget year. So this year you've got an issue. Next year you don't have state funding coming your way. 27 you'd have funding possibly coming your way. The need is now, and that's what we're trying to hit home to them as much as we can. Maybe I'll stop there with special ed, unless I'll take questions on special ed if you've got them.
I have one. We've talked a little bit earlier about grants to either begin or to expand special education programs in district as pilots to try to show some best practices and to try to create programs at a scale that could invite other students in regionally. Is that still being discussed anywhere around additional funding for specific special ed programs?
It is, but again, it's in 27. This new select committee on special education held 4 listening sessions across the state. And it's being led by a state rep from Windsor who happens to be a special ed teacher and a former school board member. So she's got a really good outlook. And in a conversation with her in the hallway today, she said, yes, we'll have a public hearing. Yes, it'll be in a couple weeks. But she said, we really want to see what we can do in terms of controlling costs at the local level. Mm-hmm. She said, I know from this side of the coin where I sit now that while we can promise state funding, we want to be able to help you at the local level as well. So, they're looking at what potentially could be done regionally, what could be done to bring students back in. And as I say, she's we've got a very good rapport with her, Representative Marianne Kahn, K-A-H-N.
Thank you.
Sheila, this is Bill Tesber, the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil and Family Services. There was some talk about adjusting the threshold for the excess costs for students who are in district versus out of district. Is that still something that's in the works or still on the table?
It's still on the table. The problem with doing, I shouldn't say there's a problem, but yeah, so right now it's at 4.5 times. There is talk of going to 3.5 times. Some people are bold and saying 1.5 times. We'll see where the numbers lie. It's a numbers game at this point in terms of where they want to spend the money. They also talk about putting a weight in the ECS formula for special education. the way they have it weighted for English language and for poverty. So, that's a concern because that money goes to your municipality. It doesn't go directly to you. Yeah.
It would be an effective way if we're talking about trying to provide programming for students in district. Adjusting that threshold would be a way to drive that to happen, right? That would be a great way to be able to help incentivize the development of programs in district for students who need it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Okay. So I had a couple other, again, it is the year of special ed. Please get us your stories. I hope that you will testify. Come as a group, come as a district, come as you are. But your voices need to be heard. You can do it virtually if you can't get up there. And as I say, I think the hearing will be the week of the 17th, I believe. I don't know what day yet. We get 5 days. They have 5 days notice on a public hearing. So there would be 5 days notice in the bulletin to be able to notice that. There are a couple bills I wanted to draw your attention to. I don't want to, you'll just have to point blank tell me when to stop in terms of timing. But there is a bill on paraeducators out there in terms of providing healthcare savings accounts, which was started by the comptroller a couple of years ago, I believe. Being state supported, they're now saying, the next time around, this will be just a 50% amount going towards your paraprofessionals, and the districts would then need to pick up those costs. We know that districts need paraprofessionals. You cannot operate your special ed programs without paraprofessionals in your districts, and we know you value them greatly. However, we do believe that this is something that should be collectively bargained in terms of the costs associated with hiring an employee. There are, going from pillar to post, I guess here, I'll just say there's a different bill out here saying use of smart devices in schools. That the State Board of Education adopted guidelines back in August of 2024. I was pleased to see that this bill says that this seeks to codify those guidelines, and we're appreciative of that approach. We didn't want to see the legislature adopt a more stricter position. There are also potentially some grant funds associated with this in terms of whether your district has or has not funded pouches or whatever method you're using. Okay, and then another bill I chose to talk about here was the availability of the AEDs and requiring cardiac emergency response plans in your buildings, in each of your buildings. We know that you have emergency plans, school safety plans, and that you would have this as part of your plans. So that's the way we testified, saying, this is already a part of your plan. Whether you choose to, not whether, but how you choose to implement and inform is certainly of value in knowing how this bill could be potentially before you, in terms of making sure that your employees know your plan and it's a workable plan. In testimony, the American Heart Association said that there was, in terms of the funding, the grant funding, it costs about $3,000 for an AED. And they said that they were looking to put grant funding together for Alliance districts. I believe it was $521 million, I believe. No, that's not right. I'm forgetting the number. But it's not just a grant to buy an AED. You all have to maintain them to make sure that they're still operable when you need them. So that's certainly a concern to us as well. Not on here is an act concerning libraries, another bill that had a public hearing last week. that we certainly have some concerns about. We know that it's always best to have a plan adopted, because there you have some ability to have staff have the support they need, and have a process should you have a complaint, a qualified complaint. And then the ECS as a whole, I'll just say that there is money to continue with the 2017 agreement. There's $85 million that's working towards the increasing that agreement to fully fund ECS before 2030, I think it is. 2026. All right.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Wex.
Would you mind going into a little more depth around the librarian bill that's on the table?
Sure. The librarian bill has, I think, I don't have the bill in front of me at the moment, but I know it seeks to have, it defines a qualified complaint. It sets up a process for a district to follow. It asks the district to set up a process and to have a process, have a policy, I should say. So that's the other part of it. We know that there are concerns in testimony, librarians said that some of the complaints that come in, they are able to handle without going to a full-fledged complaint process. They may come in, the parent may come in and say, in particular, this testimony was, I don't want my child reading Harry Potter. Librarian said, of course, come in, let's talk about what we can find for your child. And she was able to suggest something that she thought that the child would love, and the parent walked out with that book and was pleased. So part of it is conversations, part of it is wanting to make sure that districts have the capability to handle a complaint and have the resources for the students that are in school with them to be able to have them grow and learn on their own and supported by teachers.
Thank you. So is this, if we could step back, just the bill is from what I've read, around the ability or the process, setting up a special process or ability to essentially terminate librarians or not terminate librarians. Is that accurate?
And I don't believe there's a component in there about terminating them. It's
not just a termination, but they're treating librarians as almost a special class within the schools in terms of how they're treated versus teachers or other staff. Is that not accurate?
I don't think it's so much the librarian as it is setting up the library with the process. The librarian,
Okay.
yes, is in charge of that process, but it would not be a decision solely made by the librarian, and it would seek to create a process by which a book could be vetted.
Understood. Thank you.
Other questions?
I've just one briefly. Sheila, are you following? I'm sure you are. Bill, I think it's 7011, statewide assessments, and it looks to scale back for the smarter balance from every grade, or each grade 3 through 8 to be just 4, 6, and 8.
Yes, yeah. We're encouraged by it, but we know that certainly federal law requires it otherwise. So there would need to be changes that way as well, which was the commissioner's testimony, which is of course true. And we know that there has been, more of an opportunity whether it be for disengaged youth or gifted and talented students that want to be able to have project-based learning, and we'll see how districts come to better understand testing as a whole. But yes, there is support for less testing.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. I think that's it. Thank you so much, Sheila. I really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Yes, and we look forward to having some of you, all of you, many of you join us for our Day on the Hill on March 12th. It's a great opportunity. We've had breakfast in, the communities down around the state, but now we're all coming up to the Capitol and making some noise. So
Awesome. Thanks for all the work that you do.
thank you for
We
having me,
appreciate
and
it.
please stay engaged. I appreciate your input tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, moving on to the budget update with Dr. Lutzy.
Yes, the perpetual update. In your package, you have a couple of pages, and I wanted to share this with you because these are the same pages that I shared earlier, well, late last week on Thursday with the Board of Finance. So I always just like to make sure the Board of Ed has all of the documents and all of the things we're talking about. I'm just going to very quickly walk through it. I'm glad to slow down, but I know some of you were there, others were watching, so I certainly don't want to repeat myself entirely. Nor do you want me to do that. So the top page is just a snapshot of where our surrounding districts are. So it gives you a sense of sort of where we're coming in relation to our peer districts. And you see that we're right in the middle. We're 5 of 9 if we look across. And the average running here is 4.65. So we're sort of right at the average. We're running right in the middle of the pack, which it just shows the budgetary pressures that I think all districts are experiencing in an inflationary environment. We had 2% or 2-ish% for a long time, and budget tends to be a lagging indicator around inflation because inflation happens after a budget's approved, so then it takes some time for budgets to make whole. The next page, or the back of that page, is the actual budget versus what the adopted budget was. And this was a request of the Board of Finance. They had asked what happens with funding that isn't spent? Do we ever have money that's not spent, and where's it go? So we thought doing a quick 10-year look back on this would be helpful. We found that as much as $2.078 million has been given back. And of course, that was during the shutdown of COVID. And then the year after, the 1.3 was the following year we weren't running our athletic program. So you have lots of transportation things and VPA and other things. But looking across, the median is 23-24 actually, which puts you at 557,994 with an average of the 689,806. So we do generally, there's only been 1 year in the last 10 where we didn't have funds to turn back. We do generally turn money back, and it tends to run us about a little above $500,000 at the end of the year. There are some, we've been not accused, but there's some people under the misconception that districts go on spending sprees at the end of the year. We don't do that. I don't know that any of my colleagues do that either. I think that's a misconception or misperception. But what we do is we work very hard to be good stewards all throughout the year, to execute on the funding plan as we have it. And if we can save a few dollars and turn it back, we do that. So, wanted to make that point. The third page, again, moving very quickly through here. There were a number of emails that the board and other town bodies received questioning our spending on medical versus our neighboring district, Darien, and making some misstatements about the cost. And so one of the challenges around making these comparisons is that we are self-insured, so every dollar that goes towards paying a claim comes out of our internal services account. Darien is fully insured, so they pay a premium to another company who holds all of that money, manages that, and makes those payments. Because they are fully insured, it's very difficult to compare what they're paying the company to what we are paying for our actual claims. We try to run at zero. We try not to make a profit. We don't build margin in. We try to balance it out. And we know that by building our claims model, there will be some years that we come out ahead. And that's what builds up the internal services fund, our reserves and other things. The best example, I think, is during the pandemic when everything shut down in the spring of 2020. Nobody was going anywhere, right? So for us, we saved all of that money, and that was to the tune of, it was a little bit over $2 million, I believe, in that insurance, because we weren't paying those claims. Now, we did pick some of that back up afterwards when things picked back up, but not nearly all of it, right? So we still came out pretty well ahead, and those funds were reinvested and used for us. Had we been fully insured, we would have kept paying our premiums, and the insurance company would have kept that for-profit, right? So I think that's the easiest way to understand that pretty significant difference. What came out of our conversation with the Board of Finance was a desire for a meeting with Board of Finance, Board of Ed, with Joe. Town council would be invited as well, Board of Selectmen, to take a deeper dive into the insurance over the last couple of years and understand it. Now, I know the board just did that, right? So if any of you want to run that meeting, feel free. But we can, we'll have Joe come, we'll do some work, we'll take a look at some of the comps. And he has been continually analyzing for us any opportunities for savings. You know, as we've said, through the years, we've sort of pulled most of the levers that we're able to pull around savings and plan design. So we've taken some other looks and thought a little bit creatively about, you know, if we can build up the reserve to a certain amount, perhaps we can adjust the stop loss and actually use the reserve to cover a portion of the stop loss at a higher level, and maybe we save some on our annual costs and things like that. So Joe will go into some details about all of that too. So we'll look at some time, probably June, if we can get everybody together to do something like that. And if not June, at some point prior to the start of the, ready for it? 27, 28, no wait, 25, 26, 26, 27 budget process. Prior to the start of that, we'll get together to do it. We did get an update from Joe that claims are running slightly better than they were a year ago. Not quite as good as they were running in October, but we're keeping a close eye on it. But because our claims are running where they are and the claimants are running the way they are, we do anticipate being able to save some money in the stop loss renewal. So we had built in a 15% increase in that in our budget, and we're one of the things that we're talking with the Board of Finance about was taking that down to about a 5%, give or take, and Joe's going to continue to follow up. So that's about $125,000, $140,000 difference on that shift. So there could be some savings there. The last page, in the Board of Finance conversation and where we are with the budget now, we spent quite a bit of time reviewing capital, which will be surprising to anybody who knows that I really don't spend much time on capital in these budget conversations. But it's very important that we do. So we've made a few adjustments, in part because we've identified some prior year bonding funds that we're able to apply to some of the requests that were in the budget for FY26. We were planning to use it and to do larger scale projects, but we're going to scale that back in part at the request of the Board of Finance. And those include masonry. We have some funding from the past, so we're going to reduce this budget request by the $250,000 for the masonry. We'll still do the work. We had the funding to continue doing that. The same goes with painting, and we're really looking to focus those funds, high school and Saks primarily, except for a couple of other spots in the elementaries that really need it. So we're taking that down by $80,000 because again, there's some funding there. We're reducing the ceiling tiles initiative by $100,000. Again, those would be all over at Saks because it happens, right? In time, it ages out. That's a long-term project that will take years to do across the district. If you look up anywhere, you see lots and lots of ceiling tiles. So, but we'll start over at Saks with that. The engineering general funds, there were still $71,819 in an FY23 account. So we're turning that back over to the town. The energy conservation, $150,000. That's money that had accumulated FY25. 23, 24, 25. We were, at the time, looking at expanding the combined heat and power, the CHP program that we have over at Saks, but we really want to pump the brakes on that a little bit because we need some more time with the system that's there to make sure it has a reasonable return or horizon in order to recoup the funding. We're some mixed success over there. We're also, the $30,000 was in the request for next year for the East School Walking Trail. And I met again with the PTC this morning, and last week they had talked with a few folks. The PTC over there is going to fund that for us. So we're still getting the walking trail, and they're going to do some fundraising over at East to do that. The Dunning scoreboard, we're actually accelerating that project into a special appropriation or a use of bond funds. So I sent a message over to Deanna today, spoke with Tucker today. It'll be on the Board of Selectmen's agenda in the morning, Board of Finance's at night, and we hope to fast track that so that if we get the order in by May 1st, we're very confident we'll have a new scoreboard up for the fall. If we don't do it until July, we don't believe we'll have it in time. And as we talked, and Jay Egan shared with us at the workshop, our board is 13, 14 years old at this point, and we can't get parts in a reasonable timeline. So if something happens, and things do happen to it, we could lose weeks if not months. And in season, that would be very problematic. So sent them the quote and the sketch, and they're going to fast track that for us over there. And the last is just a reduction of the Saks courtyard resurfacing. Taking that down, we have money in phase 1 for demo. We still have some funding there. So that funding plus the funding that we're asking for, we believe should be enough to complete the project and do a very nice job for that. So we have that in place on the capital side, some of those adjustments. It takes us to $932,819, as you see there in the corner. And then over on the operating side, we're taking a very close look at what opportunities may be there, and we think there are some. So we're looking at our health insurance, of course, that we just talked about. We're looking at athletic transportation. We need a little bit more time this year, but we've really been saving quite a bit. DATCO's been great, and so we haven't had to bring additional charters in. So because of that, our fund is down, or our spending has been less. Fortunately and unfortunately, our teams keep winning, so we have to keep paying to send them places. So there's also that part of it, but that's a good problem to have. But our transportation, we think there's some savings opportunity there. We're looking at attrition across the board, certified and non-certified, as we've talked about before, and we think there's some opportunity there. And then we're also looking at our heating fuel, and we think that there could be some opportunity for savings there as well. So on the operating side, we're looking at coming down, as I said, about the 140, give or take, in the health insurance. And we're comfortable at this point, given what we know and where we are, talking about maybe $160,000 or so reduction there. So about a $300,000 reduction that we'll be sharing with the Board of Finance prior to their meeting tomorrow night.
That's great, thank you. Questions? No, awesome. Thank you very much, that's great. And then moving on to statement of accounts with Mr. Sean O'Keefe.
Thank you and good evening. So we're through January. Our operating fund expense actual is $55.3 million, or 50.6% of our full year 25 budget of $109 million. So a 50.6% attainment of budget. This compares to 49.8% in the prior year. So we're slightly ahead, as we have been for the last several months. And it's likely timing differences and mostly in contract and property services, which we expect to normalize by the end of the year. On grants, our grants to date total $2,091,501. Year-to-date expenditures $538,000, leaving a remaining balance as of January 31st of $1.553 million. In the school lunch fund, the school lunch revenue totals $1.552 million, or 50.3% of our budget of $3,086,504, which represents a year-to-year decrease of 2.9%. As I mentioned last month, the decrease primarily attributable to a shift in the mix of sales. There's more hot meals being purchased versus more expensive sandwiches and snacks. In addition, also reported last month, our free and reduced population has increased from 130 at this point last year to 162. Expense in total through January, $1.377 million, or 48.3% of our full year budget, and it represents a year-to-year increase of $47,000, or 3.6%, and is primarily attributable to a budgeted increase in salaries, about $25K, and equipment, $35K, and partly offset by lower groceries and paper goods. Overall, our net income through January is $175,000, resulting in a current fund balance of just over $1 million. And we expect to be using some of those funds this summer when we install 3 walk-in freezers. Over to facilities rental donation. Facility rentals totals $136K. Expenses $117. Net income $19,000, and fund balance currently at $346,000. Donations revenue $123,000 to date. Expenses $177. Net income minus $53, leaving a current fund balance of $125,000. Summer school revenue $125, thousand, expenses 132, net income -8, and the current fund balance 163,000. And a quarterly update on capital. Since we've been tracking, focusing on closing out older capital projects, and we use May of '24 as our baseline. Since May, in May, we had about $2 million of prior year older, I would call it older capital. And since then, we've reduced the balance down to about 900,000 through January. So it's about a reduction of 1.1 or 56%. And since this report's been completed, Brian just mentioned that we closed out about $200,000 that were given back to the town. So that some of that is full year '23. So that should add to this reduction. We're getting closer and closer to zeroing out all of our older capital. And so I've got questions.
Erica?
Do we expect to finish closing out that older capital within the next year? Or what does the remainder look like once you net out?
I don't know if we could do it in a year. Some of it is just naturally something that takes time to do. Our window is very short in the summers. So I would say a year to 2 years, we could probably close it out. If we can do it in a year, I'd prefer that.
But the constraint is really the summer period
Exactly.
and how much time we have to be in the buildings without students.
Exactly. Yep.
And capital does work a little bit differently. When we have it approved, it's on the books for 2 years. And then we can continue going back to the Board of Finance or ask them to carry it over. So there may be a project that's approved that the price might change by the time it's approved to the time it's executed. We might need more funds. Maybe we have to go back to them for additional funding, so that can continue. And vice versa, it might cost less, and then we might be able to use those funds towards something else, but it's all with the approval of the Board of Finance. But it's not the same as an operating budget that you're zeroed out at the end of each year. There is the opportunity to carry. Yeah. So I guess my point is we may never be zeroed out on the past items. So as we clear those off, we'll continue moving forward, and some that were recently approved may become the past items as we continue going.
Yeah, I can see that. It's, coming in and then flowing out. But I do think it's good to try to keep that balance though, because it shows when the other town bodies give us that money that we are trying to turn it around as rapidly as
That's
we
right.
can.
I think the
And we
2-year
want to.
timeline is a good timeline, right? That horizon, a 2-year horizon for the use of the funds. Anything beyond that, we should be explaining as to why. There needs to be a reason.
Great, I appreciate that.
It's a major focus
Thank
for
you.
the Board of Finance as well. It should be. Before they give us more money in the next fiscal year, they want to know if we're spending the money that we've already been given. So it's an important question that we receive every year.
Questions? Oh, great, thanks, Sean. All right, moving on, we've got one action item. And this is can't believe the year's gone by that fast, but we're going to be voting on graduation day. So, I don't really need that much to talk about.
Yeah, I'll just share very quickly. So much depends upon a snow day, right? So the one snow day that we've had, the one cancellation, pushed graduation to the Monday, where it would have been the Friday before, because the statute speaks to it has to be on or after the 180th day of school. So that on Monday, June 16th, that's our 180th day of school. And we're scheduling graduation there now. Once we set the day, if there is another cancellation for any reason, we don't have to change it. So once we set it, once the board sets to approve it, it's in the books. And so we want to bring it tonight just to have that finalized for families. I know they've been asking. And we did move it to 10:30 a couple of years ago with great success. It's worked very well for our families and our kids. And in June, as you know, because of the heat and the humidity, often in the afternoons, 5 o'clock or so, there's always a thunderstorm threat. To what degree, you don't know, but it's almost always there. But 10:30 in the morning, we're early enough, so we've been fortunate enough. Somebody knock on wood. The rain date would be Tuesday the 17th at the same time. So we do that right after. And what we'll do the week before, Thursday, we have our grad walk, which is where all the graduates meet here. They put on the regalia. We have the buses, and we drive around all the other schools and walk through the hallways. Really a great celebration for those kids and seeing their teachers and friends and siblings and others. And then graduation rehearsal will be on the Friday instead. So that's the way the end of the year will line up for our seniors. Of course, our last day of school is the 18th. It's Wednesday the 18th. So they're graduating on the 180th day, but the rest of K 11 will be still in attendance until that Wednesday on that half day.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Great. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Monday, June 16th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. as the New Canaan High School graduation date for NCHS graduating class of 2025 with a rain date of Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Can I get a motion? Wex, second. Matt, all in favor? Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you. And then once again, comments from the public. Would anybody like to approach the board?
Julia Farber of Sagamore Trail. I requested a official review of our policies that I believe are not in compliance with Connecticut state law. I also would like to point out that we seem to rely a lot on experts and professionals in creating our policies, and I want to give you a reason why we shouldn't rely on expert and professionals. Every Board of Ed meeting starts with Mr. Alves saying that rule for public speaking is 2 minutes per speaker and 15 minutes total per issue. That is mathematically impossible because any number times 2 is an even number. So a combination of 2 minutes per speaker and 15 minutes per issue is not possible. And if your expert helped you create this policy, how can we trust them with our children's education? Your advisors and your expert you invite to present to us every other week didn't catch on this simple math error. So I'd like to say that you need our community feedback. You need parents to advocate for our children. And we need real parental feedback and open, ongoing communication channel with families you serve. This is our money, our children, our schools, and we have every right to decide how that money is spent and what values this school choose to reflect. You were elected to build these policies, and not the consultants and not the experts. And under Connecticut General Statutes 10-220, it's your legal duty to create policies that follow the law and reflect the values of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
How you doing? I'm Drew McGrattan. I'm at 275 Park Street. This is also in regards to the formation of a curriculum committee. To me, this is pretty simple. Parents are not trained educators. They should be nowhere near the education of my children, just as I shouldn't be anywhere near the education of yours. I think we have trained professionals, and that's valuable. They know the needs of their students, their classrooms, and know how to address those needs. The curriculum is available online for anyone who wants to see it. It's pretty fully transparent as far as I've seen. If you have an issue with any of it, with any of the materials, you could speak with the teacher administrators. Making the majority adhere to the worldview of a tiny but loud minority is not the solution. The motives of some of the people behind this effort to meddle in our schools are suspect. We have Phyllis Schlafly over here. Got another board member driving around with a Let's Go Brandon sticker on her car. Another board member once pledged to paint New Canaan red. These types have been around as long as public schools have been around. They create straw men out of certain books or aspects of the curriculum to obscure their real purpose, to impose the religious beliefs and political ideology on our children. So I say let's tune out all this noise, let's stay focused, let's keep the local equivalent of Doge out of our schools. Instead, let's double down on our administrators and teachers who fight for our kids to learn every day. Thanks for your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to approach the board? All right. Moving on to announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy.
Sure. Our next meeting will be Monday, March 17th. A couple of very quick announcements. As well as being Arts and Education Month, March is also Middle Level Education Month, so keep an eye out for Sachs Middle School and the great things that they're doing over there. They have a video that they're putting together and some other ways that they're thinking about celebrating middle level education in the unique needs of students at that level and the many gifts and joys that they bring into the school every day. Tomorrow, there's a statewide initiative called Wear Red for Education. And the idea there, it's in support of our public schools. And it's really a celebration of the great work that public schools do every day and the transformative nature of our schools across the board. So you may hear or see some things in the press about all of that. I imagine and expect that there'll be teachers and administrators wearing red in recognition of the value of public education tomorrow. And for us, it's really a celebration of the work that we do in recognition of the fact that it is the most important work on the planet. So, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Matt, second. Matt, all in favor? Great, have a great evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.